A gun is being pointed at you. Tell the funniest joke and you are free to go. What is the best joke you have? Two nuns are riding their bicycles through the village. One says, "I've never come this way before." The other replies, "Me neither, it must be the cobblestone." Two nuns sitting on a park bench when a naked man runs past. One of the nuns had a stroke. The other one couldn't reach. Two nuns are driving through Transylvania when suddenly the apparition of Dracula appears on the bonnet. One nun says to the other, "Quick, show him your cross." So the other nun winds down the window and yells, "Get off my fucking car, you cunt." I think this one's my favorite. You expect it to be dirty because jokes about nuns often are, and if subverts expectations twice. Thank you. Two fish are in a tank. One looks at the other and goes, "You know how to drive this thing?" Two soldiers are in a tank. One looks at the other and goes, "Blub blub." This made me laugh way more than the actual joke above. How do you kill a French vampire? You stab it in the heart with a baguette. That may sound easy, but it's actually painstaking. That one subset of jokes that can't be said aloud are often the best. They say T-Rexes can't clap because they have short arms. It's actually because they are dead. Two guys were on a boat out at sea one day. One of them pulls out a cigarette and remembers he forgot his lighter. Asks his friend if he has a cigarette lighter. His mate takes the cigarette, throws it overboard and says, "There you go. Now the whole boat is a cigarette lighter." Two guys see a dog licking himself. First guy says, "Don't you wish you could do that?" And the other guy says, "Yeah, but I'm afraid he'd bite me. I recently went to the doctor, and he told me I had to stop masturbating. When I asked why, he said, because I'm trying to examine you." Where do you find a dog with no legs? Right where you left him. A woman just had a baby at the hospital. The nurse comes in to tell the husband that she didn't make it. The husband looks at nurse and says, "Well, bring me the one my wife did make." What's the difference between a hippo and a Zippo? One's really heavy and the other's a little lighter. What is a pirate's favorite letter? You might be tempted to answer, but his first love be the sea. A horse walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Why the long face?" The horse says, "My crippling alcoholism is destroying my family." If a blind woman tells you you have the largest penis she's ever felt, she might be pulling your leg. I have tested this, and it is funniest if you look up the verses yourself. Truly, a pastor moves to a new town, and the day before services, he goes to visit members of his new congregation. He comes to one house and knocks. No answer. He rings the doorbell. No answer. But he can tell someone is home. So, he pulls out a card and writes on the back, Revelation 3:20, puts the card in the door, and moves on. The next day, after services, he finds the card in the offering plate, and on it is now also written Genesis 3:10. He goes to his Bible, reads, and lets out a hearty laugh. Again, it is truly funnier if you look it up yourself. But if you're truly too lazy to Revelation 3:20, behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if any man hears me, and lets me in, I will sup with him, and he with me. Genesis 3:10. Yea, I heard thy voice in the garden, and was afraid, for I was naked. LOL. I found a book of old Christian jokes in the shelf. It was my late grandfather's. This joke was in it. I have another one. John was lying as a meadow questioning his existence. He then said, "God, are you there?" To his surprise, God replied, "Yes." He began asking God questions. "What is a minute like for you?" Knowing John would not understand the concept of infinity, God replied, "A minute to me is a million years." Wow, John said. He asked another question. "What is $1 million like to you?" God replied, $1 million to me is like a penny." Wow, John said. "Can I have one of your pennies?" God replied, "Sure thing. Just a minute." I remember this one from my childhood. Little Johnny goes to church. One Sunday, Johnny slept in and was late for church. So in his morning rush to get to church, he hurriedly gets dressed, climbs on his bike and takes off, forgetting his bicycle lock. Not realizing his mistake until he gets to church, he begins to cry from the resuming conflict of risking damnation for not going to church or leaving his bike unsecured out the front. The pastor sees little Johnny obviously upset and begins to comfort him. "Pastor, little Johnny, what is the matter?" "Johnny, I've forgotten my bike lock and don't want my bike to get stolen while I'm inside." "Pastor, do not worry, young man. God will watch over it for you. Come along, all will be good." They enter the church and the pastor guides Johnny to his seat and takes to the front to begin his sermon. He starts his sermon with, "God is with us here today," and little Johnny jumps up and says, "No, he is not. He's out the front watching my fucking bike." Oldie but goodie, two factory workers, Sally and Billy, are talking. Sally says, "I can make the boss give me the day off." Billy questions, "And how would you do that?" Sally says, Just wait and see. She then hangs upside down from the ceiling. The boss comes in and says, "What are you doing?" Sally yells down, "I'm a light bulb." The boss then says, "You've been working so much that you've gone crazy. I think you need to take the day off." Billy starts to follow her and the boss says, "Where are you going?" Billy replies, "I'm going home." 2. I can't work in the dark. It seems dirty at first but takes a good turn. A man is brought to the gallows to be executed. As they're putting the noose around his neck, he's asked if he has any last requests. He asked for a high five, but they left him hanging. Gallows humor is a good place to be as a journalist with a passion for the next customer service experience that is in the field of professional knitting. I have the ability to fight with a wide variety of products that have a variety of different types of business in mind. I have to keep up with my current level of tinfoil, and the other side of our family is not a necessary service. Are you okay? Do you need me to call you an ambulance for the stroke you're having? Because if so, you're an ambulance. There are 2 types of people in this world. Those who need closure. There are 3 types of people in this world. Those who can count and those who can't. A man in an interrogation room says to the policeman, "I'm not saying a word without my lawyer present." "You are the lawyer." "Exactly. So where's my present?" 2 Irishmen are stranded out in the ocean. After floating for weeks, the food stores are running low. One of them spots a lamp floating in the water. They fish it out and start cleaning it when a genie pops out. The genie says, "You woke me up from a nice nap, but rules are rules. I'll grant you one wish. Choose wisely." Without even thinking, one of them shouts, "I wish the whole ocean were made of Guinness." "It is done," the genie says, and disappears. The second man looks at the first and say, "You fucking idiot. Now we have to piss in the boat." A Freudian slip is when you say one thing and fuck your mother. How many Freudian analysts does it take to screw in a light bulb? 2. 1 to screw in the light bulb and 1 to hold the penis. Edit. Ladder. I meant ladder. What do you get with 16 Americans in one room? One whole Cherokee. Way out in the old Wild West, a cowboy walks into a saloon and sits down at the bar. After having a few drinks, he gets up, pays the bartender, and leaves. Moments later, he comes back in and says, "I'm going to sit down and have one more drink, and if my horse ain't back where I left it by the time I'm done, I'm gonna have to do what I done in Texas." Everyone in the saloon looks nervously at each other as the cowboy does as he says, and has one last drink. Once more, he gets up, pays the bartender, and leaves. Outside, his horse is tied back up where he left it. He gets on his horse, and just as he's about to ride off, a timid customer comes out of the saloon and asks, "Beg your pardon, sir, but what was it you done in Texas?" The cowboy stares off into the distance for a moment or so, then finally he replies, "I had to walk home." Edit. Thank you to everyone for the upvotes and awards. You've all made my whole week. After being a Reddit lurker for 2 or 3 years, you've all just made my Reddit dreams come true. Thank you, D. This deserves an award. If only I wasn't poor. Good job, you truly made me laugh. The ancient Romans had a god for just about everything. Everything except premature ejaculation. But I hear that one's coming soon. Guy goes to a fancy dress party in just his jeans. When asked what he's supposed to be, he replies, "I'm premature ejaculation man. I just came in my pants." Stolen obviously, but still the funniest joke I know. I have an aunt that is anti-abortion, which is a cruel nickname, but she has had 5. From Daniel Sloss, at about 3:20, https://yahoo.be/UFT8LF4LSRE. How can you find the blind guy in a nudist colony? It's not hard. Did you hear about the guy who fell into the lens grinder? He made a spectacle of himself. Did you hear about the man who fell in a well? He couldn't see that well. Here, just hand it over, I'll do it myself. An Englishman, an Irishman and a Scotsman walk into a bar and each order a pint. They grab their beers and sit down, but 3 flies come down and each land on a glass and take a sip of beer. The Englishman pushes his drink aside and asks for a new one. The Scotsman flicks away the fly and drinks his pint. The Irishman grabs the fly, pins it to the table and punches it repeatedly while yelling, "Spit it out, you bastard." A priest and a rabbit walk into a bar. The bartender asks the rabbit, "What'll you have?" The rabbit says, "I don't know, I'm only here because of autocorrect." A priest, a minister and a rabbit walk into a blood bank. The rabbit says, "I think I'm a typo."